Well, now that our large field, which is 1 mile on edge at the Hughes farm, is going to be planted, I no longer have access to such a large area, so I'm going to start building some small rockets for our smaller field. The new field we're going to be at is the Davis Park field. It's 40 acres. And I'm going to build this rocket called the Humdinger. There's plenty of very, very good build videos out there. But what I'm going to do is to show how to modify this rocket to use a Kevlar recovery system, which is what I specialize on this channel. It's going to use a Kevlar cord, a Kevlar felt blanket, and a nice 8-foot, 2-inch polyethylene streamer. If you put this up to 1,100 feet, as it says, you're going to need a large streamer in order to be able to see it and where it goes. So let me start building. By the way, I'm going to only show the building of the recovery system, so I'm going to build most of the rocket and then start having more videos when I get to the recovery system. So I put together the body section, the lower body section of this Humdinger rocket. It's very, very similar to the Gnome rocket. Fins are put on just a slight bit different, a little bit longer. But what's different is that there's a coupler and another body tube to make this rocket about 2 feet tall. So I'm going to go ahead and show how to hook up the Kevlar cord in this particular situation. I'm going to show how to hook the Kevlar cord onto the coupler and then glue that into the end of this part. With the Gnome rocket, I didn't have too many choices. I put the Kevlar cord, I wrapped it around the body down here, and I put some E6000 glue on it to bind it. And then I put the cord into the body at the top of the clip, and then it goes inside, and there's a 4-foot Kevlar cord inside of this. But again, with this Humdinger rocket, we have a few more options where I'm going to hook the Kevlar cord onto this coupler, then glue this in here, so I don't have to pull it all the way down and around the body. So again, I'm going to start putting some of these things together, and I'll show in the next video how to hook the Kevlar cord on. So the plan for attaching the Kevlar cord is this. I'm going to start with this Kevlar cord. This is 100-pound Kevlar cord. It's 0.8 of 1 millimeter, so it's extremely thin. It's like a very heavy dental floss, but it can hold 100 pounds. For a rocket this size, this is just perfect. We'll use this. The trick to mounting it to the coupler, though, is that I'm going to put a small hole in the coupler here. You see I have a line indicating the depth that it goes in for gluing. I'm going to put a hole in the coupler, and I'm going to fish the Kevlar cord through there and tie a slip line knot and pull it tight. Once I pull it tight, I'm going to glue the cord inside of the coupler. And then after that, I'm going to put the coupler into the rocket. So those are the steps I'm going to do. So the first step is fairly simple. All I do is just drill a hole in there. Now I use the small hobby drill. It's best to use a drill so that it's perfectly round. If you use a hobby knife, it's going to be kind of like choppy and rough. So just go ahead, use a drill, put a very small hole in here. It's real easy to do. Okay, so I fed a length of Kevlar cord through. This is about 1 foot long, maybe a little bit longer. I fed it through the hole, and I tied a slip line knot. And what's nice, I just take this knot, go like this, now it's tight. So the next step is I'm going to take this cord and pull it through the coupler. It's going to pull the knot inside. That way, when we push this inside the body tube, it's got a nice smooth mount, and the knot is on the inside, and we won't have any problems. Okay, so at this point, I now have the cord pulled through the coupler, and you see this part is now nice and smooth. This tiny bump should be fairly easy to put inside the body tube, shouldn't be any problems. And the knot now is pulled inside. Now, the next step for this is I'm going to put some E6000 glue inside the coupler to glue the cord to the inside of the coupler. The E6000 glue is perfect for this because it's nice, sticky, gooey, and it dries like an epoxy. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue along this. I'm going to pull the cord tight so that this cord now will be very tight against this coupler, and the coupler will be completely open. Now, of course, you can see the tail of the cord in there. That's okay. That's going to get stuck down with the glue. So put some glue on the inside of the coupler. The idea is to put the glue such that it goes all the way along the length of the cord on the inside. This is just a piece of tape to hold it on the outside to hold it in place. But by having the glue running along the length of the cord on the inside, when the ejection charge goes off, it's going to be pulling against the glue, and then against the bottom. If you don't have that glue in there, it's going to probably tear through the bottom part of the coupler, so you don't want that to happen. So again, this E6000 works perfectly. It's a gel, gelled like gel toothpaste. Put it on, smear a whole bunch around, and it dries with the strength of an epoxy. So this is going to be an extremely strong joint once it gets dry. So now the coupler is dry. We see inside, maybe that's hard to see, but I've glued the cord to the inside all the way along the length so that when the ejection charge goes off and this is pulled on, it's going to be pulling against the glue that's all the way along this edge so it doesn't tear this particular knot out of the end. The next thing I did was to put a very small loop on the end. I'm going to tie the rest of the recovery system onto this. This loop can be fairly small. And by putting a loop on here, it allows me to swap out other recovery systems or maybe different cords or other things that I want. So a very small drop of CA glue on here, dry that off a little bit with a paper towel, and now I've got this nice loop. So the next step then is to glue the coupler inside of the body. And we can see if we put this on here, it just slides in very, very easily. So that's a very, very simple fit. There's no problems with it binding. I do suggest using the E6000 glue, so take this out and put the glue around the inside edge. This glue won't run, it doesn't drip. Again, it's got the consistency of a gel toothpaste. When it dries, it's going to have the strength of an epoxy. So I highly suggest using this glue and do not use a wood glue. Put it around the inside and then glue this in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in my next step. Okay, so I put some E6000 glue on the inside and then inserted the coupler. And you can see this is where it's glued down. I turned it around a little bit to make sure the glue is evenly distributed. But this glue is really easy to work with. It doesn't grab. It doesn't have any problems with the glue freezing. Gives you a little bit of work time because it's got a gelatin consistency. Really nice stuff. So you can see then the end of the cord has this loop, and we're going to put this through the body. And this will stick out of the end about 1 or 2 inches. So let me go ahead and let the body dry, and then I'm going to put this portion on. Putting this portion on is a little bit challenging because we have to have the cord through here, but then we have to put glue in here at the same time. So not quite easy, but it's not that hard to do. So for the next step, what I did was to take the Kevlar cord, I fed it through the top piece. I just taped it here to hold it in place so I can work with this tube without it pulling back through. And now what I need to do is I need to put some E6000 glue in a ring around the inside and then push this together like this, and then we'll be done. Now doing so will probably push some glue up against the cord. So once that's done, I'm going to take the cord, pull it tight, and then tape it again like this so that this is in a continuous line. It may get glued down in here, but that's okay as long as it's against the side. And then we'll make sure that this sticks out the end. So again, that's going to be fairly easy to do. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So again, I'm going to open this up, put some glue around the inside and slide it together, and I'll be done. Okay, so at this point the glue is dry and the rocket body is done. So the rocket body now has the build on the end, which is what the directions show. There's really no changes there. But in the middle we have our coupler, and it's hard to see, that's somewhere, here it is. Here's where the coupler is, so that worked out really nice. Then on the very end, this has a loop with a Kevlar cord. So we can now attach any recovery system that we want to with this using a knot. So I'm going to put a 2-inch streamer inside of this rocket. I wound up this streamer material. The streamer is a very good polyethylene plastic material. It's very strong, it's very thin, and this is actually an 8-foot length of it. You can see it's going to be small enough to fit inside the body. And this is what I'm going to use for the streamer. The streamer will fit right inside there, and there's just enough room for a Kevlar felt blanket in there. So if I put this in with the blanket, everything should fit in here very snug. Now I'm going to make the blanket for this 2-inch streamer, but of course I can put a 1-inch streamer in there if I want, or even a 1/2-inch streamer if I want to fly different size streamers at different weights. So I'm going to go ahead and use this 8-foot length. Again, you can see it's all wound up and it fits very nicely inside. And I'm going to go ahead and put the cord on here and start working on the actual Kevlar felt blanket for this. So the next step in building our streamer is to attach a Kevlar cord to it. I'm going to use the same Kevlar cord that I used on the rocket body. This Kevlar cord is 0.8 of a millimeter. It's very thin, and in a way that makes it a little difficult to attach because it's kind of hard to grip onto something like this and attach it securely to the streamer. So I'm going to show you what I did. What I generally do, but I can't do in this situation, is I like to put the cord, attaching it to a toothpick, and drop a CA glue. The CA glue soaks into the wood, it soaks into the Kevlar, it makes an extremely strong connection, and the toothpick now pulls on the streamer and it doesn't tear through because it's got a large area that it's pulling against. But we don't have much space. This body tube is very small. So I'm going to go for a different mounting technique. And I haven't flown this yet, so I'll find out when I launch this in a week or two. But what I did is I made a slip line loop on the end of this. So the slip line knot can vary in its length, and I put the end of it against one edge of the streamer. It runs up to the top and comes back, and then I pulled it tight. Now at this point, it'll fall off. So I now add a strip of tape. So on this side, the tape is sticking on one side of the loop, and this side is sticking on the other. Then I put another one on top of that just to make sure that it's relatively strong and doesn't zipper. What's important about this is that the force applied to the Kevlar cord now, and you can see I'm putting quite a bit of force on it, is now applied equally to both sides, to this side and this side, because this knot, by the way, there's a very small drop of CA glue in this knot to make sure this knot doesn't untie and it stays nice and firm. So again, the force now is distributed when you pull on this on both sides of this streamer. What's interesting is that this the tape is just regular packaging tape, and it is extremely sticky and it bonds really nicely to the Kevlar material. I'm very, sorry, not to the Kevlar, to the Mylar material. So I'm very impressed with actually just using that tape. It works. I've never had a single failure. So on the other end is the traditional loop that I put on here. This is just an overhand knot. Again, a very small touch of glue here to hold it in place and just trim it a little bit. And I use this to mount the streamer. Namely, I just put this through the loop on the body like this, and then put the streamer through, and it ties it right on. So rather than using snap swivels, which I certainly do not have space for in this particular rocket, it's really easy to use these knots, and this thin Kevlar line works just perfectly. Now comes the real trick. How do you fit an 8-foot streamer inside of a 1/2 inch body and still have room for a Kevlar felt blanket? Well, I use what I call center winding. This is a technique that I invented. Now, I don't know if anybody else has invented it. I certainly haven't seen anything, but it works extremely well. We start by having the streamer and having the two ends together. So we have the end with the cord and then the other end, which is right here, and make about 3 inches, maybe 2 inches worth of space between the two. So now what I'm going to do is go all the way to the center point. This is 8 feet out. And at this point, I fold it over, and I usually put a bunch of marks on here in order to help me find this later. So later when this opens up, it's kind of hard to find. So I put that marker on there. So what I'm going to do now is wind the streamer starting right here and wind down this direction by using a winding rod. Okay, so now I'm going to wind the streamer up, and I use a steel rod. You can use something like a launch rod, but that's relatively smooth. You want something that's a little bit rough. So this steel rod, once I sand it, it's a little bit rough and it grips onto the streamer, making winding it quite easy. So first thing I do a couple of winds on here and make this relatively tight. And once this is tightened up, it's really easy just to wind the entire streamer relatively quickly. So I just go ahead and wind it like this. You see it is shifting back and forth a little bit and various types of mismatches, but you just really easily just push this, line this up, real easy. And then at this point, we just twist the rod the opposite direction. Now we have our streamer module. If you put your finger in the center and pull on it, it'll tighten it up a little bit. And now it's nice and tight, ready to be put into the rocket. So what we need to do, you see this is a nice size. We need to now make a Kevlar blanket to wrap this in, which will help it slide out. The other important thing is that the Kevlar blanket does two things. Is under the high acceleration, the streamer might slide down, and doing so, that may cause it to shift its center of gravity and certainly become unstable. And the other thing, it also wraps it and provides some degree of protection against the ejection charge. So a very important aspect of the streamer mechanism is to have a Kevlar blanket. The Kevlar blanket is cut from a large piece of fabric that I ordered, and this is like about 3 or 4 feet long. I bought this and I built over 50 rockets with it, so it really is nice material and can be used for many different things. So the Kevlar blanket is this, and it's going to be used to wrap the streamer. So the streamer goes into here, and this gets wrapped like this. And again, it provides several functions. One is it's a nice smooth material, so when you put this into the rocket, it just slides out very easily. The other thing is that it prevents the streamer from sliding down when you accelerate, so it holds it in place. It also provides some degree of fire protection. The question is, what size is this and how do you determine the size? The body tube is a 1/2 inch in diameter, and we can look at some various ideas on how this wraps, etc. But a simple rule of thumb is about 50% more. So this being a 1/2 inch diameter, this is 3/4 of an inch wide. For the length, it's pretty easy. This is a 2-inch streamer, so we have 2 inches here. We have 2 inches here coming back. And we need some space on the end and the top. So 2 inches plus 2 inches for the width, and then the width of the body, a 1/2 inch, width of the body, 1/2 inch, total of 5 inches. So now we have our streamer fitting inside of a blanket, which is 3/4 of an inch by 5 inches long. So now that we have our Kevlar blanket cut to the proper size, we now need to have a way to attach this to our cord here and here. So we need to have some way to attach this as well. What I like to do is I take a brass washer, a number 8 brass washer. It seems to be an exact fit for all the work that I do. Just take the washer, and it's going to get glued right here on the end. So what I do is I hold this with a forceps. I scrape it with some emery cloth to make it a little bit more rough, this. And then I take some E6000 glue, and I wipe it around underneath and then stick the whole thing down and let that dry. Okay, so I have my brass eyelet, and on this side I scraped it up quite a bit with the emery cloth. And as you can see, I put a lot of E6000 glue on there. What's nice about this glue, again, is that it's got a gel consistency like a gel toothpaste, so I just put it on there and it stays where I put it. And now I'm going to stick this down onto the Kevlar right here. And it's also going to stick to my finger, obviously. And that's it. I can smooth out the glue a little bit. Now, it's not going to really matter how much glue you use there because it's going to stick into the fiber. So that's what's nice about using the E6000 glue, is that it's got this gel consistency. It'll stick into the fiber. And when it hardens, it's going to be similar to an epoxy. If you use the CA glue, that's not going to work. The felt is going to soak it up like a sponge. It's just going to sink right in. Then you've got basically a stiff piece of hard felt. So this is how I'm going to connect everything together. I'm going to connect the loop through a cord to this loop here, to the streamer, and hook together the entire recovery system. So now I have to let this dry for about an hour or two. So I let this dry for about an hour on a heat rack. A heat rack is just a little portable room heater that I face upward, and it produces a nice updraft of warm heat. But this is dry, and you can see I just cut the center out. And it's pretty easy to do. Just flip it over like this, and then follow a sharp knife around the edge of the washer, and the center of it cuts out quite easily. So now this is going to need to fully harden over the course of maybe one more day. So this glue does dry relatively fast. It's really nice, but the strength is developed. Like many epoxies, it takes about a day for the strength to really complete its chemical process. So the recovery cord is going to be made out of this 100-pound Kevlar. I've been using this for the rest of the rocket. Again, it's fairly narrow. It's about 0.8 of a millimeter, but it does hold 100 pounds, so it's sufficient for what we're doing. So I just cut a 5-foot length of Kevlar cord and put a little CA glue on each end to keep it from fraying. And I did a video about that. So I'm going to use this as my recovery cord. The next step is to tie a loop nut on the end. That's the overhand loop nut, or sometimes called the fisherman's nut. And this only needs to be big enough to pass the nose cone through. So here's the nose cone. And you see this is very easily big enough to pass the nose cone through. We're going to need this in order to tie the knot later. And we need this loop on this end. So the loop is on one end, and I'm going to actually tie this directly to the nose cone on the other end. Now, I've had some issues over the last many flights where on occasion the Kevlar cord will just slice right through the nose cone eyelet here, just slice right through it. With this cord being so thin, it just acts like a hot wire and cuts right through that sometimes when the ejection charge goes off. So I initially had put some glue on this at one time, then I found out that it pulled the entire eyelet off. So what I'm going to do, and I've been doing this lately, is that I made a slip line knot and I pulled it tight. That's the slip line knot there. And again, what's nice about that is that the knot is right on the top. And I'm now going to add some E6000 across this so that it will smooth over the knot and also across the top of this of the bar part of the eyelet. So hopefully that's going to be strong enough and it won't pull it all apart. So let me go ahead and do that. And by the way, having a 5-foot cord also helps to mitigate the problem by giving the nose cone a chance to slow down a little bit. Okay, so let me go ahead and put some glue on that. Okay, so I put a lot of glue on here, and as indicated, I want to make sure that this does not tear through or tear the eyelet off. So there's a lot of glue on top. Oh, looks like a little bare spot there. I'll cover that up. And the glue is also through the eyelet portion, so there's a lot on it. I'll just go ahead and let this dry. It's okay. This glue, when it dries, is going to shrink up quite a bit, and it's going to be a nice and smooth type of thing when it's done. Right now it's really gloppy looking, but it's going to smooth out and when it dries up. So now we have the fun part. Let's just tie it all together. We've got the rocket with a loop. We've got the nose cone, the 5-foot cord with a loop. We have the streamer with a loop. And we have the Kevlar felt blanket with an eyelet. So let's just tie it together. We're going to start with the nose cone. It's real easy. Just simply put the loop through the rocket nose cone, so through the rocket loop here. And then put the nose cone through this loop. And then we just pull it tight. And there we have it. We are all tied on. There we go. So now we have our nose cone attached. Next thing we want to do is attach the streamer. Now the question is, where does the streamer go? There's various places. If you attach it close to the rocket body, it's going to flutter more because the rocket's going to pull it around. I like that. If you attach it close to the nose cone, it's going to remain more straight and it's going to fall a little bit more straight. And it's going to be more of a vertical type of sparkling type of effect. So again, depends what type of effect you want to do. With this particular rocket, I want to get as much drag as possible. So I'm going to put it on the same loop here. Put this in. I pull the streamer through. And now that's attached. So now I have attached both of them. The last thing to attach is our Kevlar felt blanket. Now this needs to be attached very close to the nose cone. And the reason is that it holds the streamer in place close to the nose. So under acceleration, it doesn't move. So just make a little loop like this in the cord. And we're going to push it through. Now the trick to this is we're just going to simply pull the Kevlar felt blanket through this loop like this. And now we have our knot. Now the nice thing about this is we can very easily move this knot around. And I'm just going to slide it up close to the nose cone. So we take this cord where the nose cone is, pull it tight, pull this other one tight. And now we're done. You can see this Kevlar felt blanket is attached very close to the nose cone, and it's not going to go anywhere. So now we're all set. We're all set for flight. All we have to do is wind up this cord and slide it in. And the streamer, we just simply fold up in the blanket, slide that in, and we can go ahead and go launch. So that's it. Happy flying. So let's take a look at how we get this ready for flight. This Kevlar cord here is 5 feet long, and we are going to stuff it inside that little tube. And that's one of the beauties of Kevlar, is that it does wind quite easily, but you have to do it so that it doesn't tangle. I showed this trick before. You just put your fingers apart like this, then wind this in a figure 8. So you wind it in a figure 8, it puts a forward, then a reverse turn in it so it does not wind up like a spring. So now we have this all wound up. We simply take this off our finger. I put the two loops together, and now we have this little package of Kevlar cord. What I'm going to do is just squeeze it, and I can put this inside real easy, just like that. And for the streamer, we have to be careful. Once I take this rubber band off, it's going to try to spring apart. There's a lot of force on this stuff once you wind it up. Okay, so I'm going to take this, put this into the blanket, up near the top, fold this over. You see it's a nice fit. All I have to do is just push this inside. I'm going to push some of this cord inside. I'll do it afterwards, but you can see this now fits very, very easily. Just slide it right in, just like that. And the rest of the cord you just pile up on top, and you're all done. That's all you have to do is just get this all set. As a matter of fact, just get the nose cone on there. There, I'll just go ahead and push the rest of the cords inside, and you're all set for launch.